Hi again, it's Miss Gilligan. I'm so happy to be back with you. Today is the third day that we're going to be looking at our fiction story, The Clean Team. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen with you. Let's start by reviewing our I can statement. Read along with me. I can describe characters, setting, and plot events. And that's what we've been doing for 2 days now. Since it's day 3, you're going to start doing a lot of the work on your own, independently, but not just yet. Let's dig in a little bit together. We've talked each day about how good readers reread their stories. So that's how we're going to begin our lesson today. We're going to reread The Clean Team. This is written by Anna Prokos, and if you remember, it's a realistic fiction story. That means what happens in this story could really happen in real life. As we reread, I want you to think again about the important events in the beginning, middle, and end of the story. I'm going to read out loud, but I want you to read along with me as well. Let me get back to the beginning. There we go. The Clean Team by Anna Prokos. Neat Nick is walking through the town. He spots some garbage thrown around. He throws the trash in the garbage bins. I love cleaning up, Neat Nick grins. Nick picks up litter from here and there. The street is so dirty, he says in despair. Who is tossing this trash on the ground? Neat Nick spots someone walking around. He's mucky and messy from head to toe. Hi, the kid says. My name's Sloppy Joe. Neat Nick here, says Nick, and I'll take a guess. You must be the one who is making a mess. A mess? Joe asks. I don't understand. Look, Nick points, that drink fell from your hand. Sloppy Joe shrugs. What's the big deal? And then he tosses a banana peel. Neat Nick falls down with a slippery slip. Whoa, he screams, your trash made me trip. I'm sorry, says Joe, but I must admit, it's fun watching you do a banana split. It's not fun, Nick says. When you dirty the street, you have to try hard to keep the earth neat. Can you help me, Joe asks, to stop being mucky? I don't want the earth to look and smell yucky. So Neat Nick and Sloppy Joe work hand in hand. In no time, the two friends have cleaned up the land. It's fun being neat, Joe says with a wink. Now, let's get ice cream. What do you think? And that's the end of our story. Each day, we've looked at the big question and the big words at the end of our story. Let's quickly review our big words. I didn't include garbage in our first lesson because I thought you knew what garbage was, old food and other items thrown out. But the two words we did talk about were despair, which means with no hope or to feel hopeless. That's a great character feeling word that you can use when describing characters in fiction text. We then had the word mucky, which meant covered in dirt or filth. And in our story, Sloppy Joe was mucky, and he was making the earth mucky by dropping his garbage and trash on the ground. The big question at the end of our book is, What did Sloppy Joe learn about being neat? We talked about how when we read fiction, it is to be entertained, but that we can also learn from our stories. So when we think about what did Sloppy Joe learn, we can also talk about what we learned as readers, and we can call that the theme of our story. What is the message or the lesson that we learned? We're going to come back to that in a few minutes in our lesson as we focus on the important events at the end of our story. So let's go back to our lesson. I'm going to share with you now what your reading response is for today. Because this is the third day we've read our story, I want you to practice identifying and describing the important events from the beginning, the middle, and the end, all by yourself. You can pause now and follow these directions and then come back. Or you can do this reading response after we finish. The directions for the reading response are to get a piece of paper and fold it into 3 sections. You will label the sections beginning, middle, and end. You can see an example of this on the screen in the graphic organizer to the right. Then in each section, beginning, middle, and end, you will write 2 to 3 sentences to describe the important events in the story, The Clean Team. My challenge for you is that when you write your important events at the end, you answer the question that it was at the end of our book. What did Sloppy Joe learn in the story about being neat? Try to include that in the important events at the end. So again, you can pause now and go work on your reading response, or you can do it later after we finish the lesson. Here is my example of how I identified the important events from the beginning, middle, and end of our fiction story. Let me read it to you. In the beginning, Neat Nick walks through town picking up trash off the street. He wonders who is making a mess by throwing the trash on the ground. In the middle, Neat Nick sees Sloppy Joe and realizes that he is the one making a mess on the ground. Nick gets upset after he slips on a banana peel Joe has dropped on the ground. In the end, Sloppy Joe and Neat Nick work hand in hand to clean up all of the trash on the ground. Sloppy Joe learns that he should be a responsible citizen and do his part to keep the earth clean. So you see how at the end, I answered that big question. What did Sloppy Joe learn about being neat? After listening to my summary of the story, think about if you and I agreed on what were the important events. As you continue reading fiction stories, you can always practice identifying and describing the important events from the beginning, middle, and end in this same way. I also have a fun reading response that I would like you to do after you finish rereading The Clean Team. Our 2 important vocabulary words were despair and mucky. I would like you to reread the definition of the story vocabulary, think about how the vocabulary was used in the story, and then sketch your vocabulary. Sketch is another word for draw. So what it means is I want you to draw a picture that shows the meaning of each vocabulary word. How would you sketch or draw something that is mucky, covered in dirt or filth? And how would you sketch or draw the word despair, with no hope? That's a challenge, and that will be fun. Be creative and come up with your best drawing or picture or sketch of these 2 vocabulary words. You can share your picture with someone at home with you and ask them if they know what it shows, and then have a discussion about your vocabulary words and their meetings. So I hope that that's a fun activity for you to do. And then I have some independent practice. Now that we have finished reading and discussing the clean team and practicing our I can statement, I can describe characters, setting, and important events in a fiction story. Now I have a fun independent practice for you that you can work on anytime you would. You will click on the link to practice describing characters and events in a fiction story. The link is here, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. You're also going to see on your weekly calendar the link for The Strangest Nest. And you can do this at another time, not as part of our lesson now. So let me show you what this looks like when you go to practice. Give me 1 minute to move my screen. So when you click on the link, this is what you're going to see on your screen. A big green circle that says go. And when you push on that button and see it kind of flashes to remind you, click here, it's going to take you into an interactive video where you're going to get to read a story and answer some questions. Next, you'll click on the book and you see the yellow outlining it, kind of flashing to remind you to click here. And now you'll be all right, so you see it's going to talk to you. It's going to interact with you. It's going to ask you questions in the video, and it's going to have the story for you. So let's look at the beginning of it together. So we click on the book, The Strangest Nest. So I will pick this picture because I know what a pigeon looks like. And then I click the word done. So then you will read the story and look at the illustrations. The Strangest Nest is a realistic fiction story, just like the Clean Team. As you're reading, you'll see words in bold print. If you click on this word, it will give you the definition. So just like we had important vocabulary in the Clean Team, you'll have important vocabulary in The Strangest Nest as well. As you read through the book, there's a green button that will say reading check. When you click on that button, you'll be asked a question. Once you answer the question and make your choice, it will tell you if you're right or if you need to try again. So that's as far as I'm going to go because I want you to really have fun interacting with this video. So I'm going to come back out of here and go back to our lesson. So again, that's your independent practice. You can work on that anytime you want over the next few days. Okay, so that's the end of our lessons using the story, The Clean Team. Let's just wrap up by restating what we did as readers of fiction text. When we read our realistic fiction story, we focused on the elements of fiction, our characters, our setting, and the important events. By focusing on these elements of fiction, we helped ourselves by making sure we understood what was happening. When we focused on our characters, we described them based on how they felt or what kind of traits they demonstrated through their actions and words. At the end of the story, we answered a big question, and we briefly talked about that being the theme of the story. In the weeks coming up, you're going to have some lessons specifically about identifying theme. But a theme is a lesson we learn from the story, and in the CLEAN team, we all learned the lesson that we should be responsible citizens and take care of our Earth. So, on that note, I also want you to take care of yourselves. Remember, we miss you, we love you, and keep on reading. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.